Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, February 9th. This is episode 50 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. It is Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl 59, Chiefs, Eagles set to kick off in about 6.5 hours from now. Of course, it's a full day affair. All the pregame shows, all the hype going into the game, and kick off a little bit later on. See who's crowned Super Bowl champion. You got the Eagles going for revenge from 2 years ago, and you got the Chiefs going for history as they look to become the first team to three-peat. So we'll see what happens later today. And then once this game concludes, it's officially the offseason, 2025 offseason begins, and all eyes set towards next offseason. DiMari, I know we talked about in the intro, or behind the scenes rather, before we got on here. Both of us hoping one day we can get this feeling. Maybe both of us at the same time. Jets, Cowboys, Super Bowl 60. Why not, right? One can dream, right?
Well, I don't think it's in the colors for both of us next year, but
not at all.
yeah,
Not at all.
definitely curious. And just woke up this morning like, what does it feel like as a Chiefs fan who you've been here so many times in the last few years? Like, this is just another game. Is this the regulars? So yeah, I mean, kind of excited. Kind of sucks the season is coming to an end, but no better way for it to end today than Philly losing in the Super Bowl, hopefully by 100. So let's get into it. And I'm on Philly hate watch for today.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you. I understand there's a lot of hatred for the Chiefs, and believe me, I don't love the Chiefs by any means. I would have rather, certainly preferred some of the other AFC teams to get in over Kansas City, but I can't stand Philly. If it was Washington, I'm going Washington. If it's Detroit, I was going to go Detroit, but Philly, can't stand them, can't stand their fan base. Same Chiefs. I'd rather see history over crazy Philly fans see success. So that's what I'm going for today. But yeah, this is it. Enjoy it. This is final, 3 hours of football until August. So enjoy it. Take it in, because then tomorrow the offseason's officially on. And before we get to the Super Bowl and some of that here in the middle of the show, we got to start with some topics that are already kind of affecting the offseason here. And that is Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp. So we'll start with Myles Garrett since that's the biggest one and that happened first. He requests a trade away from the Cleveland Browns. We'll also get to Cooper Kupp. Not a trade request, but made an announcement that the Rams are looking to trade him. So both these guys, assuming things happen, trades happen, both these guys will be in different uniforms by week 1 of next season, as they've both spent their entire career so far with one team. So Garrett, I feel like this is not a crazy surprise. It's certainly a little surprising anytime you see a player of his caliber request a trade. It's certainly a little bit of a shock, but I mean, this is a guy that's been with the Browns forever, going back to 2017, of course, the first overall pick out of Texas A&M, has seen very little winning and is in the prime of his career, 29 years old, going to be 30 next December. You understand where he's coming from. You understand even in his statement how he wants to win a Super Bowl. And you look at what has happened to Cleveland over the last year. You have questions at quarterback. I like Stefanski as a coach, but if they win 5 games this year, are you really bringing him back after next season? So you could be looking at a new coach in 2026. You're in a really, really rough spot. And where he is in his career, he's got to win. He's got to want to win. He needs to win now if he really wants the best chance to win, because he's in the prime of his career. When he hits 33, 34, he's going to start to fall off. And if he continues with the Browns, when we talk about our teams getting to the Super Bowl, I don't think the Browns are sniffing a Super Bowl right now with their situation, quarterback, the contract with Deshaun Watson, which is obviously one of the worst in NFL history. So I definitely see where he's coming from, and I understand it. What were your thoughts on it?
I'm not surprised. I'm honestly not surprised. I think you set it up perfectly. It's kind of win now. Sorry. It's kind of win now. I mean, at least for him too, you kind of look at it from Cleveland's side. I know you don't want to let him go. Obviously, everything he's done for the organization. But Myles Garrett also doesn't come off as the type of guy that's going to leave kind of Jimmy Butler-like. I'm going to say that for the fans that like all sports. Jimmy Butler-like. It's not going to be bad blood or anything. And that type of caliber player, he can set them up for success. Multiple players, multiple draft picks. Like, it's going to take a haul to completely acquire Myles Garrett. And I think you also just, again, perfectly said, it's not like you're getting Deshaun Watson back next year. You had Deshaun Watson back on a good year this year, and obviously the Achilles injury as well. But it's not like Deshaun Watson's coming off a great year where he got hurt 11 games in and things were looking good, and you rolled into the postseason and everything went downhill from there because you have a backup quarterback. It was bad, no matter who played. Deshaun, Jameis, DTR, like it looked very unhopeful, and basically, like you said, they're never going to touch a Super Bowl. And for Myles Garrett, I mean, we see it often. Devontae Adams is the most recent one I can think of, where you're getting up there, like between that 28 to 30 range of age. You're just like, look, love the organization. I appreciate you guys, but I have to win, because if I don't try to go do it now, it's never going to happen, and it's never going to happen in Cleveland. I hate that for Cleveland. That's one of those fan bases, everything they've been through, everything with Baker, like you want to see him eventually win. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, I think he definitely has to get up out of there. I mean, it's a few teams that he's listed, Dallas being one of them. So hopefully he can get somewhere and win, because a guy like that who's been so successful and so dominant for so long, you want to see them have success eventually.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's 4-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro, Pro Bowler 6 times, won the Defensive Player of the Year award, of course, last season. Was right back in the conversation this year. Actually, on the NFL honors, they popped up on the screen, Myles Garrett when Pat Surtain won it. I don't know if you saw that, but that was, they were like expecting Myles Garrett to win, and then Pat Surtain ended up winning it. But yeah, and I agree with you. He didn't take the Jimmy Butler approach to this, and I think that does show a lot of Myles Garrett's character. Like a lot of times when guys request trades, they won't even send a statement out. They'll kind of go behind the scenes, request a trade, and then you'll hear it from one of these reporters, whether that's a Schefter or a Rappaport, somebody like that, and they'll kind of just go away silent. He sends the statement out. He thanks Cleveland, all that stuff, understands, what he has been able to accomplish there, even though it hasn't been winning. It's a guy where they took a chance on him with the first overall pick, and he's panned out in a huge way. And yeah, I mean, this is a guy that in 7 straight seasons has had 10 or more sacks. He's had 14 sacks back-to-back years. Like, this is the time for him to win. The time is now. Like, we've seen a lot of aging players play, and then they get to 33, 32-ish, and then they try and chase that title. I think Myles Garrett, these next 2-3 years, if you can get on a team, he could potentially not just go on a team and try and win one, but go on a team and potentially get them over the top, right? You mentioned a team like Dallas. I could see even Buffalo, another team that I think could easily be a front runner for him, where you've got Greg Rousseau, you've got some pieces there, but there isn't that elite edge rusher. We know Von Miller is a shell of himself. He's not even close to what he once was. Garrett can come in there, and if he gives you 14, 15 sacks, that might be what elevates you over Kansas City, is that All-Pro Defensive Player of the Year edge rusher that can just dominate down in and down out. So Buffalo, Dallas. You look at some of the other places, maybe any other places for you that you feel that he could fit?
I'm going to say Detroit. I mean, I know they had Hutchinson on one side, but you add a guy like that in Detroit, we know definitely win now. They're kind of willing to ship whatever. Philly scares me, but that's another one. 2 teams that are kind of like, look, we kind of don't care about the next 3 to 5. Let's go ahead and figure it out these 1 or 2 years. I can see one of those 2 teams being very aggressive after him. And like you said, I mean, those are 2 teams already that are contenders. So you add him to that mix right there. I mean, you're looking like at an unstoppable defense almost.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would even say too, just the possibility of Hutchinson and Garrett on each side is insane. But I mean, you're looking at 25 sacks from those 2 guys, 28 sacks. I mean, crazy. And they would both elevate each other, of course. I'd even look at a team too, just staying in the NFC, maybe a team like Green Bay, where not really in that win now mode like Detroit, but they're building towards that. And Myles Garrett could be that piece that finally puts them in a position to get over the hump within the next couple seasons as some of the young talent on offense continues to develop. Jordan Love, obviously, in a perfect world, would continue to get better. But you look at that defense right now for Green Bay, from an edge rusher perspective, you've got Van Ness, who I think had 3 sacks, 4 sacks maybe last year. They do have Rashawn Gary, who has been a solid, stable piece for them, but it's not Myles Garrett. So
yeah.
I could see a team like Green Bay as well. Maybe would a San Francisco make a move for him where you pair him up with Bosa?
What I mean, again, kind of when now they had just a
Yeah.
down year, some unfortunate
Yeah.
things. That defense, Myles Garrett, yeah.
If there was a move to get that fan base kind of bought back in and get them back to relevance right away, it would be to go and strike a trade for Garrett. And after finishing in last in a weak NFC West, if you want to take over an NFC West where it looks like the Rams might be, which we'll get to in a second, looks like the Rams might be retooling a little bit with the unknown future around Stafford and looking to deal Kupp now. Seattle they'll be in the conversation, but they're never going to be elite with Geno. Right? They've got some questions here coming up in the future with quarterback. Arizona I don't know. I think they go as far as Kyler's going to go, and I don't know if Kyler will ever be that quarterback that they thought they were getting. I think they could be a wild card team, but probably not much else. So yeah, if there was a way to get right back in the conversation at division and win it again, it would probably be dealing for Garrett. I just think, to me, if I had to make a prediction, I think Buffalo is going to make a huge move for him.
I think so. And I know they came out and said, hey, we're not going to be ultra aggressive in free agency. But I mean, it's Myles Garrett. You have to. It's Myles Garrett.
I think I do remember that Brandon Beane saying that, but I believe that was pre-Myles Garrett trade.
Yeah, it was. So like you see when a guy come up and you're just like, I know what we said, but at the end of the day, this is Myles Garrett. So we got to go do something.
Yeah. And I will even say, too, from Cleveland's perspective, you got to get a haul now. You got to get whatever you can get for him. And now you look at the number 2 pick, Abdul Carter. Feels like possible landing spot for him as kind of, who knows if he will be Myles Garrett, but to take over that role. So, sorry about that. Frog in my throat. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And, I would say this with Cleveland, like, from the rest of the, I guess, I don't know, roster franchise perspective, it's a massive blow, of course, just because he's a face of your franchise and stuff, but kind of felt like, too, he was one of those leaders in the locker room. Now you're going to have to rely on one of these other guys. It feels like the step up. Like, they're just in a really weird spot roster-wise, because even on offense, they've got some talent, but they don't really have a quarterback. Now they're losing your star defensive player. They're kind of in no man's land right now. At least you can hang your hat on having Myles Garrett. At least you can always rely on him. You go into next year, who's like that guy for Cleveland? Jerry Jeudy, maybe? Like, I mean, but he's going to be only as good as his quarterback takes him. I mean,
you got to find him. I mean, maybe a Denzel Ward, maybe I don't know how to pronounce his last name. The linebacker Jeremiah, I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I don't want to botch it.
Oh yeah,
someone
like Camaro or something. Yeah,
someone that's been there for a while and kind of understands the culture, understands everything behind the organization. Jerry Jeudy just got there, obviously had a great year, but I don't think he's going to step up as the vocal leader. So it's definitely going to have to be somebody that loves Stefanski, vice versa, and they can try to just rally the guys. Because like you said, that's a huge piece missing. When a guy like Myles Garrett leaves your organization, it takes a lot out of you. So someone, again, who's been there for some time that really understands that organization is going to have to be the next guy up.
Yeah. 100% agree. 100% agree. And maybe that is a Denzel Ward. You make a good point, just because he's been there for, I believe he was drafted the year after Garrett. So he's been there pretty much a year. I mean, less, but he's a good player. I guess just to finish things out here from a Cleveland perspective, who do you think's under center for them week 1?
At first it almost seemed like it was a guarantee it's probably going to be Cam Ward, but Now, if Garrett wants out and you need a replacement, do you go get an Abdul Carter, like you say, and maybe try to get a Jackson Dart in 2 or 3? That kind of depends on what they do with Garrett when they move the pieces around. Might be Cam Ward. They might go later round up again, Jackson Dart. This kind of just threw everything for a loop. It was like quarterback no matter what. Now I don't know what direction Cleveland's going in.
Yeah, and it does help the Giants now too, because if you take you take Abdul Carter, or maybe now you just go best player available, I don't know, take Travis Hunter or whatever, and you don't go quarterback, pick 2,
or
it opens up the door now for sure.
Or Sam Darnold is quarterback for the Browns next year.
It could be Sam. I hope it's not. I hope Sam doesn't go to Cleveland.
Yeah.
I hope even if they give him a ton of money and say, please come here, I hope Sam realizes that, like, that would be 2 organizations now that all they've done is failed quarterbacks, Cleveland and the Jets. So I would just hope for Sam's sake. Maybe he would turn it around. He's a massive upgrade, and it's not like their offense is completely, it sort of sucks. It's not very good, but you have Chubb healthy. Jerry Jeudy had a good season. Darnold would elevate guys.
Yeah.
You would need more. But yeah, Darnold, I would even say maybe does like Russell Wilson take a 1-year deal there on like a flyer and then have like a Jackson Dart sit behind him, or is it like a Kirk Cousins on a 1-year flyer and then really have your eyes set towards the future?
I think it's if you miss on Darnold. It's no way, respectfully, but it's no way you look what Russ and Kirk did in that division. If you were in the AFC South maybe, and all you have to deal with is Houston, and you're just like, okay, well, we just have to outduel Houston and CJ Stroud. One of these guys can do that, but Lamar, Joey B, I think Sam Darnold is the best option to even come close to being like competitive with them.
It is. Yeah, it is 100%. Now, if Darnold does go to Cleveland, he automatically becomes better probably than whoever's under center for Pittsburgh, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Unless if Pittsburgh goes and strikes some crazy trade for somebody, or the quarterback market's pretty dry. It's very dry. It's basically Darnold, and that's it. Then you get into your Marcus Mariotas, your Jameis Winston, who's fun because he throws 4 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. So at least you're going to get a crazy experience. Kirk Cousins, like, it's very dry. Depending on the Rodgers future, which feels like we'll get an answer this week, maybe he's available via trade. So that would be another name. But then again, how many teams are going to take a shot on a 41-year-old Rodgers for a year, knowing he's got to take a cap hit and probably learn a new system? That's a question that really nobody knows. By the way, we just got breaking news. Debo has requested a trade.
Not surprised. I think that came out. Was that yesterday or 2 days ago
that there's
going to trade him. Yeah, and now. All right. I think we called that. I think we said that even before. I think when their season ended, we mentioned the possibility of Debo being out, T. Higgins being in. We know ball. We're on to something. We are on to something.
Definitely. All right. Shall we move on to Cooper Kupp? So Debo request trade. Yes, stay out west. Stay out the Rams, or go to the Rams instead. I don't know. The Cooper Kupp thing's interesting because I still think he is got still a solid receiver if he could stay healthy. But the problem is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And this doesn't come by much of a surprise either, because you've started to see a changing of the guard here the last 2 seasons with Puka Nacua. A lot of what Puka Nacua was doing the last 2 years is kind of what Cooper Kupp was doing previously, going back to that huge season where he had, 900,000 or 1,900 yards for the Super Bowl season, where he, of course, I believe he took home Super Bowl MVP that year as well. He's kind of fallen off a little bit, right? Only 9 games played in 2022, 12 games in 2023, 12 games in 2024. So he's missed a lot of time. This doesn't come by much of a surprise, and it feels like the Rams are kind of slowly moving on from that Super Bowl core in a way. Like Aaron Donald has retired, gonna move on from Kupp now. Stafford's future's unknown. Probably at most he probably plays one more season. So it does feel like a changing of the guard here. My biggest thing is like what team, and this is where the trade becomes interesting because like what team is going to want a 31-year-old, going to be 32, aging Cooper Kupp with his contract that's injury prone?
Now,
It's going
here's
to be
where it's
interesting.
funny. Let me cook. Here's where it's
Yes.
funny. Before the news broke of Kupp being traded, I actually was starting an article of some trade targets for Dallas at wide receiver.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp obviously being one of them. Well, Cooper Kupp
Mhm.
was one of them. Just again, you sense that it was going to happen. His time in LA was done. So I mentioned Dallas, of course. And I think that's something that they do. I think just because they are already talking about going receiver in the draft in the first 1 or 2 rounds. So let's say you get a Luther Burden with your at 12. Ashton Genty's gone. Let's say you go get Luther Burden at 12. You look at that Dallas roster outside of CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Brandon Cooks was a free agent. And I mean, that's another guy we're talking about that can't stay healthy, who we owe $20 million this year. So it's like, hey, do you want to go get a Brandon Cook and sign him back on a 1 year? Or do you go get a Cooper Kupp who is Cooper Kupp? At the end of the day, I mean, I know we talk about it so often. You look at a player have a few down years in the organization, and you're like, hey, maybe if they just get a change of scenery, Sam Darnold, their game elevates. They start to look a little different. So now you put Cooper Kupp in that offense with CeeDee Lamb, who does so many things better than Puka. Don't get me wrong, like I obviously like Puka, but CD is CD. So now Cooper Kupp is the second focus of that offense. Now you get a Luther Burden in there. So now you got two guys that are great against one-on-one, two guys that can stretch the ball down the field. Now you got Cooper Kupp that loves, the underneath game, that type of stuff. I think that's a great fit for the offense if Dallas is willing to do it. But I mean, on script, off script, you look at the receiver core next year, Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Tolbert, Jonathan Brooks, CeeDee Lamb. Like, that's not going to get the job done. So I think Cooper Kupp would be a very great fit if they are willing to bite the bullet and, hey, try to win now.
Yeah, I agree. I like Dallas for a lot of different receivers, whether that's a Kupp, a T. Higgins. They need help at that position. And Jerry Jones has got to recognize he can't make the same mistake he made last year with the running back. He's got to be able to pay up, whether that's the asking price through a trade, whether that's the asking price for money. He cannot make the same mistake and try and like scotch tape the number 2 receiver together with cheap options and hope that a guy just explodes. Even if you draft a Luther Burden, you're still asking a lot for a rookie to come in day 1 and be the number 2 alongside CD. At least if you can have Kupp for a year or two as that slot guy that can kind of, be a threat underneath, speed, bring some veteran experience, of course, and then have Luther Burden like you're mentioning as well. I like that. But I'll even just going back to the just Kupp as an individual player. I think both of us are probably a little bit higher on him than other people are. I think other people are kind of, and this is why I said, like, I don't really know what his market's going to be because you hear so many people around the league and say, oh, he's done, he's washed, nobody really wants him. You're hearing reports that teams aren't going to want to trade for him because of his injury history. Like, this isn't like it's an aging, I don't know, what's an aging receiver recently that's, I don't know, like a DeAndre Hopkins on the
That's actually
Texans or Titans,
what I was
right?
about to
Or
say.
something.
DeAndre
Like,
Hopkins. Perfect.
He's got a lot more gas left in the tank than some of these other guys, or even a Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Like, we're acting like he's going to be Julio Jones on the Eagles in his next team. Like, I still think Cooper Kupp's got a lot left. And you're not asking him to be a number 1, most likely where he goes, right? Dallas, you're not asking him to be a number 1. If Cooper Kupp next year plays 13 games and gives you 750 yards and 7 touchdowns and let's say 68 catches, I think you're okay with that as a Cowboys fan. It's a lot better than what you got this season. You're not asking Cooper Kupp to go out there and have 1,900 yards like he had in 2021. Nor is that the player he is, but I still think this is a guy that can, it's not like he's 38 and he's done nothing the past 5 seasons. He's his production has dropped off a little bit and injuries are a concern, but I don't think it's time to just write this guy off. I mean, I think he's still got a lot left. And I know the contract's a concern, and you probably a team would have to figure that out, whether you want to restructure, adjust it. But then there's a lot of teams out there that would take Cooper Kupp as a good fit.
I'm also glad you said restructure the contract, because people think that you have to grab this player and then pay him the same amount of money,
Yeah.
or even extend him. Like, no, you can break down that contract to your liking, however you want to do it, whether that's incentives, whether that is even if you extend, so the cap hit is less and it goes out further. I don't know. He's one of those guys where it's just like you have to do it. And again, I was going to use DeAndre Hopkins as the example as well. It's not a DeAndre Hopkins where it's kind of like, hey, a guy that we're going to throw out on there, hopefully he gives us something and we try to go out there and win. He definitely still has a lot. You can talk about the injury history. I understand that you don't want to pay somebody that's not going to be on the field. But at the end of the day, you look at what he does when he is on the field. That's one of those risks that you got to be willing to take. It's either at the end of the day, I mean, either it's going to work out or it's not. And I think that's the same case if you go sign anyone, trade for anyone, draft anyone. Hey, if they're going to be healthy, they're going to be healthy. If they're going to be hurt, they're going to be hurt. There's no stopping it. There's no controlling it. Worst case, you go out, you try it out, and it doesn't work. 2 years, you move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. You throw Dallas in the mix.
I like Washington as well.
Yeah, Washington, that's a good point. You see a Debo Cooper Kupp swap.
Probably not.
Both teams dumped their slot guys in a way. No. I always thought of something like crazy. I was thinking the other day, and this won't happen, but if they would to package Kupp and Stafford in a deal for another team's quarterback receiver combo, like let's just say hypothetically, Rodgers and Devontae to the Rams for like Stafford and Kupp. I don't see that happening, but if you wanted to get crazy and think about the chance of them packaging both those guys, maybe, but probably not. Not even a maybe. It won't happen. But I guess if you want to think, we can get a little bit crazy with the trade proposals.
Well, Luka got traded at 12:30 a.m. So there's nothing. I don't think there's any trade right now in sports that I just absolutely feel cannot happen.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think that Luka trade set shockwaves, of course, to even the point where Anthony Edwards was begging for the Timberwolves to not trade him.
Yeah,
like that's where we are at. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at. It's still crazy to me that trade went down, and you still see so many comparisons to what that would look like in the NFL. And there's been a couple good ones, but I still feel like they don't quite encapsulate like what actually happened.
Yeah, it's you throw out so many examples, but there's nothing that probably is going to really explain.
I guess in this case, it would be just off the dome as a Jet fan. And I would hate if this is not going to happen. They won't do this. But it would be like a little bit similar to the Luka trade would be basically trading Garrett Wilson to the Rams for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
A little bit, right? You're getting an aging player who Anthony Davis is, I would say, better than Cooper Kupp is now. Like Davis at basketball, like is probably better than Cooper Kupp, right? I guess. I mean, yeah. So it wouldn't be exactly, but that would be similar. Like it would be Garrett for Cooper Kupp, which would be an awful trade for the Jets.
I don't say Lamar. I won't say Lamar for like Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford. Like you got a young guy that is just completely excelling, and you got a guy that's I'm gonna use Rodgers, injured over the last few years. Obviously, AD's always hurt. He got
not
hurt
the
yesterday,
same player,
but not the same player, but still has those glimpses of greatness when things are going how it should. But it's again, no matter what example you use, it's just a terrible trade all around.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Lamar, that's a good one. Or even you throw like a Burrow in there, or even a Josh Allen for a Rodgers and I think too what makes it even crazier is it happened within the Western Conference. So essentially you'd have to look at like an AFC for AFC trade.
Yeah.
So that'd be like a Lamar for a Rodgers, which would just be stupid for the Ravens. I mean, I'd take it. Please give me Lamar all day, but or a Burrow for a Rodgers. Yeah. Stafford, Jaden Daniels for Stafford.
Yeah, that's actually might be the best one, most fitting one.
Yeah, something like that. And you just get, you'll get your mid trades where it's just basically two teams swapping mid talent.
Yeah.
So whatever that is. But yeah, Cooper Kupp, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So a lot of moving parts in the NFC West. You've got Cooper Kupp trade coming. We'll see what happens with Stafford. Debo requests a trade. Does Myles Garrett end up in that division? We'll see. So a lot going down in the NFC West, which I guess not too surprised because, only one team came out of there this year. They got bounced in the divisional round. And I think, you look at the Rams, they're kind of changing the guard a little bit from the Super Bowl core to kind of trying to build a new core. And I'll tell you what, this is just what makes the Rams such a good, well-run organization. And like Les Snead makes him such a good general manager. Is a lot of teams, it would take them a little bit to find their Cooper Kupp replacement, a guy that the production that he was putting up, or, kind of from that 2019 to like 2021 range, the numbers that he were putting up were huge. But they found that already in Puka Nacua. Yep. So that's a huge credit to Les Snead. And I think that's why the Rams will be, even if they trade off Stafford and trade off Kupp, I still think it's a team that could still compete and contend very soon because that's just what they do. I mean, they lost the Super Bowl, Jared Goff, couple years of kind of retooling, trade him, get Stafford, go all in, win. Now they're kind of retooling again, still making the playoffs, still being competitive. They'll be back in the mix. So we'll see. But anyway, let's move on here to the Super Bowl and a little bit of a Super Bowl preview. Now, before we get into that, we got to get to some news surrounding Kellen Moore and the Saints. So Kellen Moore today will be making his Superdome debut, I guess. I don't know. Well, no, he's been to the Superdome, but making his Super Bowl like welcoming. Gets to coach one more game here as the Eagles, as the offensive coordinator, and then might as well just stay there because he's going to be the Saints head coach. That report came out last night. I feel like it was Kellen Moore or nobody at this point. It's February 9th. So Super Bowl Sunday and the Saints are still looking for a coach. So it felt like it was Kellen Moore. It's just a matter of waiting for them to get eliminated, which would have been the same situation with the Jets. If the Lions went all the way as many expected, we'd still be talking about the Bears and the Jets probably have vacancies right now, looking for Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. So I guess can't kill the Saints too much, but I just still don't think the Saints is a very good job. And I think Kellen Moore's a good coach, but I don't know. It's a very difficult spot. And I personally would prefer Kellen Moore go to a destination where they got a young quarterback already in place, but they got to find one. So.
Yeah, so congrats to Kellen Moore. But Saints called me for the job. I said no. Obviously not the destination I care too much for. So not an ideal situation, but Kellen Moore hopefully can turn it around. But yeah, we talked about it. We talked about them not being an ideal situation and kind of looking at some things over the course of when he, was announced just yesterday. They do have Spencer Rattler. And I honestly think we kind of put Rattler on the back burner, but I think he actually plays some very decent football. Obviously, still young, but he's obviously not a Jaden Daniels. He's not like, I'm going to use Drake May as well, one of those guys where you kind of see what it can possibly, or for sure, like franchise guy, this is what we want to build leading up to the next few years. Spencer Rattler plays some very good ball. And you also have to remember at the end of the day, I mean, Derek Carr's your mentor. So it's like, it's not, you're not in an ideal situation of a guy to kind of mentor you. So I think I did see a report might have been ESPN. I can't remember exactly, but they do plan on moving forward with Spencer Rattler as the franchise guy, hopefully, or at least letting him have the keys to the offense and seeing what they can build. So Kellen Moore being there, maybe he can get the most out of Spencer Rattler, but he obviously will still have Alvin Kamara. He's going to need a great run game. We've seen what he's done in Dallas with a good run game. We've seen what he's done in Philly, of course, right now. The only place you can say Kellen Moore's really struggled was with the Chargers. And I mean, Herbert was hurt that year, so you take that into consideration. And you had an aging, washed Austin Eckler. You take that into consideration. Other than that, Kellen Moore has been successful, has had great offenses wherever he's been. So now he gets a chance to be a first-year head coach with the Saints in a weak division where we talked about it all the time, where it's kind of seems like it's Tampa or nobody. We do think Carolina eventually might kind of start to, win 2 more games here, win more 2 games there, eventually probably win a division. But easy division, not really a lot of expectation. It's kind of just go out there, hey, try to get us 6-7 wins to see what we can build off of and go from there. So I'm happy for Kellen Moore personally. I like it. I wouldn't have been too mad at him in Dallas, but Saints fans. I mean, if you haven't really gotten a chance to watch Philly this year, you get a chance to watch what Kellen Moore brings, and we'll be bringing to New Orleans next year. So be locked and loaded. But I think he's a pretty good coach.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good hire. We just have to see if I guess the destination is right. And you mentioned Rattler. I liked Rattler coming out of college. I liked him as a potential mid-round selection for the Jets. It'll be interesting to see like how much Kellen Moore can get out of him. You do make a point. He didn't have a whole lot last year. I mean, Derek Carr was kind of just thrown into it. You look at the talent on this roster, it is horrific. I mean, it's abysmal. Doesn't have a whole lot at all, which is going to be something that's complicated with the Saints, is trying to build this team and figuring out, the cap situation, which they've been over the cap for, years. I mean, feels like the entire Super Bowl era the Saints have been over the cap. So they got a lot to build talent-wise. But, yeah, I mean, Kellen Moore's a very qualified coach. He's had success everywhere he's gone, whether that was Dallas, offensive coordinator, then Chargers OC, this year with the Eagles offensive coordinator, obviously. So a qualified coach that's been a coordinator, ready to take that next step. Also, played a little bit of as well. Something I'm interesting just with Kellen Moore and what he's done with the Eagles is the role that Kamara has already played, but will continue to play with the Saints. I think giving more a running back like Kamara, that do-it-all guy, I think could be huge for the Saints next year. And I think, too, can be huge for whoever that quarterback is. You've seen what Saquon has done for Jalen Hurts and that offense kind of, I guess, in a way, taking the pressure off of Hurts. There's still a lot of scrutiny on, him as him through the air and, of course, the whole A.J. Brown stuff. But it's taken pressure off from the standpoint if he doesn't have to go out there and win a game with his arm. Barkley can do it with his legs. And Kamara, a little bit different from the perspective of, like, he's not as, I mean, I guess he's not as dominant of a rusher as Barkley, but he's probably better as a pass catcher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's a little bit different, but still that running back, because Barkley, to be honest, is a pass catcher. He's had some drops. I mean, he's not actually that great out of the backfield as a pass catcher. So maybe they're actually really 2 different running backs, but still a running back that can take over a game. Saquon could take over a game, and Kamara, even as he enters, his age 30 season next year, still has that ability to do so. Is still top 20 in rushing yards. The injuries, he's missed some time. He's missed not a ton of time throughout his career, but he's always missing about 2-3 games a year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Saints. I think there should be optimism. The biggest thing is just figuring out what they do with this roster and trying to find more talent,
Well, what do you think about this? So obviously, Rattler,
I might know where you're going.
You have Chris Olave.
Yeah.
What if you trade for Deebo Samuel? I mean,
maybe
that gives you another option outside of Olave, who's another one, injury history, concussion history. So you're kind of iffy on what he might give you. But obviously Kellen Moore is very familiar with him, playing against him so many times in the playoffs and just the regular season while his time in Dallas, playing San Francisco, of course.
Yeah.
And, Kellen Moore loves a gadget guy that you can use any type of way. So now it's just kind of up to Debo, where it's like, hey, do I want to go somewhere and win, or do I want to go somewhere that's going to pay me? So the Saints being a possible destination. Again, I know I always mention it. I feel like a broken record when I say it. You're not in a very good division, so you can easily turn that team around. 10 wins to get you in there.
Yep.
And 10 wins you and Tampa are fighting for. Maybe both you get in, depending on how the rest of the NFC kind of crumbles. But I think Kellen Moore, I think what he's going to bring, I think he's going to be one of those guys where you are inside the organization and some of the free agents, and we've mentioned this before, where they kind of see a name attached to the organization. They're like, I like Kellen Moore. I've seen what he's done in Dallas. I've seen what he's done with Philly. I've seen how he uses his guys. Hey, let me go to the Saints. Let me give it a chance to see what they can possibly do with me, how they can use me. So I feel like they can get some names in there. It's just about if those guys are willing to kind of not win immediately.
Yeah, I agree. And you make a point too with Debo is like if he comes there, he was going to be the number 2 alongside Olave right away. Yes, he was the number 2 alongside Ayuk, but you started to see a lot of the targets go to Ayuk a lot more. Yeah. And then even Kittle, like he's not going to be challenging with those 2 guys. It'll be Olave and him as the legitimate 1-2 punch. Which if the Saints are willing, I would, that could certainly be a move. And I was going to go there as well before you did. So I agree. Debo, it'll be, I think, to the draft as well. Like they've got to be able to, they hit on Olave. I think it's going to be crucial for them too to hit on some of these draft picks. They could use a tight end. Do you go after like a Tyler Warren in the draft? If you tell me that the Saints this offseason can go week 1, they roll out. What do you think? Spencer Rattler, probably the quarterback?
Yeah.
So Rattler, but now is Kamara, Olave, Debo, and Tyler Warren. That's a lot better than Kamara, Olave. Dante Pettis, Bub Means, or Marquez Valdez-Scantling,
Jennings, come on,
Jawan Johnson, or Foster Moreau,
a
whole lot better than those guys. So they have to be very. I think they got to kind of be unique in the way that they get there, but just because the cap situation and stuff. But work the trade market. And defensively, they've got some pieces. Cam Jordan's still playing at a pretty, he's not what he was 3-4 years ago, but at the age of 35 now, he's going to be 36, but he's still a solid veteran piece to have around. Demario Davis is still playing at a pretty high level. He had another 130 plus tackle season, which I actually believe was a career high for him this year. So he's still, even at the age of 36, he's still got a lot of gas left in the tank, it seems. They drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry.
And the two, that secondary, Alontae Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry are 2 younger guys where they can kind of build from the secondary. And not even really build. They, like you said, you mentioned the names. They still have some great players, obviously aging players, but it's not like their defense wasn't good, but it's also at the same time, like you have the names, it's just about the right fit and the right system.
And I would say that their defense is a lot better than their offense, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more talent there. And you mentioned Alontae Taylor. I like that too, where, they've got a good mix on that defense where you've got some of the veteran guys and you've got a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry, Taylor, 2 younger guys. Taylor's been in the league for 3 years now, McKinstry 2 seasons. But you've got, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, guys that have been around for a very long time. Even Tyrann Mathieu this past season was still out there, a guy that's, been around for a long time. So you could kind of talk yourself into the Saints being competent in the division too, because you look at the division, they're not great. Now, I will say this. The division all of a sudden does have a lot of under the radar storylines going into next season because you've got a Falcons team that's going to be basically, it's going to be the Michael Penix show. So we're going to get to see what he looks like for a full year. You've got a Panthers team that is going to try and, is this like Bryce Young's breakout next year? You get a Bucks team with the first look without Liam Cohen. And then you now get a Saints team with Kellen Moore and maybe a new look offense. Obviously, it's going to be a new look offense with a new offensive mind, but in terms of like actual talent, new look offense. So maybe the NFC South will be, I mean, it'll still probably be a 9-8 Bucks team or 10-7 Bucks team that wins, but it might be a little bit more entertaining getting there. So we'll see. Anyway, let's move on. Super Bowl preview here, kind of tying it into the whole Kellen Moore stuff. Chiefs, Eagles, 15-2 Chiefs, 14-3 Eagles. KC 1-point favorite. Let's see, over under 48.5. Money line at -115 for Kansas City. Philly -105. Matchup predictor: Philly 56.1% chance of winning according to ESPN Analytics. Chiefs at 43.9% chance. So, ESPN Analytics FPI rankings think the Eagles got a good shot here. This is it for all the marbles. I don't have much to like X's and O's wise. I just think the Chiefs are going to win. The Chiefs, to me, you know, we last year we said the same thing. 49ers are more talented. They should win. This year it's the same thing. Eagles are more talented. They should win. You could even make the case 2 years ago when the Eagles played them. Eagles are more talented. They should win. Steve Spagnuolo and that defense has been able to kind of just queue up a lot of things that teams aren't expecting, whether that's his exotic blitzes, making things confusing for opposing quarterbacks, making life miserable for opposing quarterbacks and the offensive line as well when he sends the house. And you've got Patrick Mahomes, who feels like all year the Chiefs offense kind of just, I guess, keeps their head above water. Come playoffs, they turn into another monster where you start to see a lot more Xavier Worthy. You start to, I mean, Kelsey really hasn't even played that huge of a role.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of these other guys where they've played big roles. And that's going to be something interesting to see going into today, where like how much Kelsey do we see? Like, is he the Travis Kelsey we saw against the Bills, where what he had like he had 2 catches on the game, but he had like 1 catch at halftime, I think it was, or something like that. Like he was barely a factor. So, but it's been a lot of Xavier Worthy. You've seen a lot of Hollywood Brown, those speed guys. You've even seen Juju Smith-Schuster make some plays. So it's, you know, this is the Chiefs post Tyreek Hill Chiefs. They just find a way to get different guys the ball. And I think that's what makes this game so scary, I think, for Philly, is the fact that they're getting those speed guys involved again, where you're seeing a lot of Worthy so far this postseason. And even Hollywood Brown, you're seeing more of, I would say more so in that Buffalo game, you saw a little bit more of him. Houston game, not much at all. I don't even think he had a catch in the Houston game, but Buffalo game, you saw a little bit more. So what are your thoughts from Kansas City's perspective?
Well, that actually rolls me right into what I was about to say. It's like, it feels like Kansas City takes a receiver, they recycle it, and they put it right back out there. You have Rashee Rice. He gets injured. You know what? It's all right. We're going to throw Xavier Worthy at you. And Xavier Worthy, then you get Hollywood Brown. And it's like they keep using the same archetype at receiver, and it keeps working. It's almost like a copy and print of Tyreek Hill, and they just continue to use it, and it works. And I think you said it perfectly, where, you know, obviously we know where you got to the point perfectly where we know where Worthy is going to do. Obviously, Hollywood Brown has kind of come on in these playoffs. What is Travis Kelsey going to do? We've never seen on the big stage like that, at least. I don't think I've ever seen Travis Kelsey completely just disappear like he did in Buffalo. And you want to say that they're not going to win if he plays like that, but then it's Mahomes and other guys step up. So that's definitely hard to say, but I think I'm kind of with you. Like, there's really not much analytical statistic side of things, X's and O's, what they need to do, what they can't afford to do. It's kind of like, both of these teams bread and butter. You know exactly what they're going to give you. Just you think that you and hopefully me as well, we both think the Chiefs are going to win. Hopefully they do win, but it's not much to say about either of these teams if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the top two teams. The Lions were the 1 seed in the NFC, but it's two teams that have had home field throughout. It's two teams that were favorites going into last week. It's two teams that everybody expected, or at least the expectation was that both teams would win, or not last week, 2 weeks ago. It's the Chiefs Eagles. We saw this 2 years ago, very similar to last year with the 49ers. We know what we're going to get out of both teams. You're going to get the Saquon Barkley show. You're going to get probably some Giants references. Over under 2.5 mentions of the Giants.
Over.
So I feel like it's probably over, but like you can't force it either.
Yeah.
You got to be smart. You got to, like, I don't know. Over, you think like 5.5 under? Probably under 5.5. I think it's going to be 3.
Probably, yeah. Under 5.5. And we've mentioned it behind the scenes where, since it is Brady on the broadcast, he's obviously going to mention it about his 2 losses to the Giants. He's going to find a way to tie it into Saquon. So I think over 2.5, under 5.5.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is it. Eagles, Chiefs. I think it's going to be a big day for Barkley, probably. Does that mean they win? I don't know, but Barkley, every game, is going to have a big day pretty much at this point.
I think the opposite.
You don't think he has a big day? You think he crumbles?
Not that he crumbles, but we know what the Chiefs are. We know what the Chiefs are going to do to you, and they're just not letting Saquon Barkley beat them today. I honestly think Saquon only rushes, and it sounds crazy because it's still a great game, but maybe 17, 18 carries for like 80, 85 yards, which is still a productive game.
Yeah.
But I don't see Saquon breaking 100 today.
Yeah, now you make a good point, because last year against the Niners, CMC, I remember, had that fumble early on. He finished the day with 22 for 80 last year. So you make a point. Maybe this is 17, 20 for 80, which isn't bad, but it's not 150 or 200.
The thing, like, what I want to say, I don't want to discredit Saquon, but you might kind of agree with me here, where a lot of Saquon is the chunk yardage. It's the 30-yard game. It's the 40-yard game. It's breaking those big runs. So it's one of those things. Saquon is like, it's like a Giannis coming down the lane, a LeBron coming down the lane. We're like, all you gotta do is step in front of him and slow him down, and then you get there and you're just like, okay, hold on now. 100%. But it's easier said than done. But you can't let him break the big runs, because Saquon is definitely just a subway coming right down at you. Once he gets going 100 miles per hour, there's no stopping. So you limit the big game, the big runs for Saquon, and you kind of hit him early, those type of things. I think they can contain him. Stopping him is holding him under 50. I don't see that happening. Containing him, holding him under 80, maybe even 90, that is what you're going to have to do. And you said it about Jalen Hurts, the question marks as a passer. I've been saying it all year. A lot of people say it. Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat the Chiefs today. I don't think Saquon's going to beat him.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I think that's where we talked a little bit about last game or 2 weeks ago against the Commanders. Like, does Steve Spagnuolo, do you sell out and stop Barkley and then let Hurts beat you with his arm, which is the smart way to go about it? The Commanders couldn't do that. I mean, they put up 50 on them. They just weren't having a whole lot of success anywhere in that game. I think they just hit a wall, which happens for those kind of teams that are playing with house money, I guess, in a way, those underdog teams. But yeah, I think that's got to be the mindset, is to make Hurts beat you with his arm, because he hasn't all year. And you saw how the last Super Bowl went, where against these two teams where you didn't have Barkley, Chiefs were able to come out on top. Now, I do think that Eagles are going to go into this game with the lead at halftime.
The script says yes. Another Philly. Yes. I mean, another Chiefs come from behind.
Yes.
I can see that.
It's happening. It's going to be like 13-10 at halftime. or maybe even more. Maybe it's going to be like 13-6. And then fourth quarter, 5 minutes left. The Chiefs are going to score. Eagles are going to go like 3 and out. Chiefs are going to score again. And it's going to be, 31-23. What just happened?
I can see that.
Yeah. Now, who wins MVP, you think? Mahomes?
I want to say Mahomes. Probably that's the obvious.
Yeah.
I want to say Mahomes, but depending on what type of game Travis Kelce has today, just say 11, 1. Ooh, there's some big numbers. 11, 130, a touchdown or two. Travis Kelce wins it.
Yeah. I think it'll be Mahomes too. Maybe Kelce, but maybe Worthy has a huge day.
Yeah.
I could see that too, where he, similar to how we talked about Barkley with the chunk plays, is Worthy catch like a slant and then just take it for like 50 yards for a touchdown. It's possible. Last year it was going to be Jennings, probably, because he threw the touchdown. So if they would have, so last year it was probably going to be some random. Not that Worthy's random, but I could see Worthy maybe. I think Worthy's going to have a big day. I do. I think Worthy's going to do something big today, whether that's or even if they run like a jet sweep or something and he picks up like 30 or 40 or something. I think there's going to be it's going to be really, I think it's going to kind of be the battle of chunk plays. There's going to be chunk plays from both teams. It's going to be, it's whoever can limit them. There's going to be a big chunk play from Saquon, probably, maybe. And I think there would probably be a big chunk play from Worthy. What is that? I don't know, but there will be one.
Yeah.
And Kelce, it's got to be in the script to have him get a touchdown, right? Like he's got to be able to produce. That's got to be in the script. There's no way Travis Kelce on the biggest stage gets 2 catches for 18 yards.
Absolutely.
So I'll tell you what, I feel like the NFL world's going to burn down if there's a bad call in this game, especially late, because we're already getting all these conversations about is it rigged, the refs, all that stuff. So I just hope for that sake, because I get all the points, but I'm like the ref debates. We all know they suck. We all know the refs are not any good. So hopefully there's no bad calls. In terms of score prediction, I'm going to go Chiefs 27-23. I think it's kind of one of those low scoring. I don't think this is going to be what happened the first time these two teams met, which was 40 or 38, 35?
38, 35.
Yeah, so I don't think we get a high scoring game like that. I think 27-23. Chiefs have been a team this year that has one game scoring under 30. I know last week they scored, 30, but 32 actually, to be exact, but scored over 30 last week. I just think it's a 27-23 game. Got to find a way to contain Barkley. If you can do that, make Hurts beat you with his arm, which with guys like McDuffie and Spagnuolo's scheme, I think that favors the Chiefs. So 3-peat Chiefs, let's be honest. They're going to win this game. 27-23. What about you?
I'm going to go 29-27.
I like that. I like the unique score.
Yeah.
Do you have 9 and 6 in a Super Bowl pool?
No.
Some of these, I'll tell you what, the Chiefs are, and I'll say this, the Jets are another team. Never normal scores. Never. Like last year, 25-22 Super Bowl final. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
Like that never happens. 32-29 is not normal either. The Chiefs playing they had a 26-25 game against the Bengals earlier in the year. The Chiefs they're always knocking on the door of the scoregamis.
Yeah, it's going to be something strange. I mean, I want to say 29-26. Oh, 29-27. I still see that happening. I can see that happening.
Late touchdown, I think.
2-point conversion. Something along the lines of that.
Yeah, you make a good point. It'll be, they'll score. This will be it. They'll score in like the end of regulation to make it 27-20, 27-27, and they'll go for 2 for the win. Or no, that's stupid. Never mind. Because then they could just kick the field goal to win it. Yeah, they're gonna get the 20. They'd have to get the 29 somehow, or they could just go for 2.
I honestly can see a
No, yeah,
27-20. They're down, and they, 3 field goals, the one to
yeah,
completely win the game, 29
yeah.
27. I can see it.
Or they're 26-26 or 26-27. They score with like 2 minutes left. They go for 2 to make it a field goal to tie as opposed to a field goal to win. Eagles go down, miss the field goal, or I don't know, fumble, something happens in the Chiefs' favor.
Yeah. Lights turn off or something. They can't see
Yeah.
the field goal completely go in, and they just, by default, Chiefs win. Let's go home.
Yeah. Do we get Nick Sirianni crying in the national anthem again?
No, not this year.
No. He is now experienced. This is his second time. The emotions won't get to him.
I actually hope they
even
keep
doing the national anthem.
I'm not sure
because it was Chris Stapleton that year. And in what it's hold on, I know who's doing the halftime show. Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
You think that's going to be good?
I've never been a huge fan of the halftime show as it is. I don't know. It's just
I've never
no matter
been
who it is.
Neither have I. I've never been a big halftime show guy.
Because one, it takes too long and I'm just like, can we just get back to the game?
I think really, if you're a die-hard, just week in and week out football fan, you really just care mostly about the game.
Yeah.
Like the halftime show, the commercials are cool. I mean, the commercials are, I guess, I don't know. There's some of them are stupid. Some of them are all right. Yeah. Sometimes I don't even pay attention to commercials either. But the halftime show, never has really moved the needle for me.
Yeah.
Just watch the game and enjoy.
Yeah.
Because the game, the game takes very long with all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, to close things out here, quick discussion. You think Eli was snubbed?
That's kind of tough. I'm gonna say no. I know the resume. I know the accomplishments. I'm just gonna say no. He's gonna get in. I just don't think he was snubbed. Not quite yet.
I agree. I heard this from somebody earlier in the week. It was one of the guys on ESPN. I forget who it was, so I apologize for not giving him credit directly. But I think this was the best way to put it. Eli Manning had Hall of Fame moments, but not a Hall of Fame career, or at least first ballot. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but he had Hall of Fame moments, right? The 2 Super Bowl MVPs. But when you look at his whole body of work, let's be real here. If he was Eli Jones or Eli, I don't know, Smith, and his last name wasn't Manning, he probably won't even be talked about to make the Super Bowl. So I do think the last name has something to do with it. We've talked about this a lot about Super Bowls. Right, if we're just basing Super Bowls, then we're saying Nick Foles is better than Dan Marino. What was the other ones?
Trent
Dilfer is better than if we're just going off of the Super Bowls and all that stuff, which we've had this conversation many times, then you're saying that some of these quarterbacks are a lot better than some of the game's best who've never won it. So same thing goes for Eli. He had a 500 record in his career, was a very high interception guy. The end of his career got very ugly. Like his last 4 to 5 years were really bad. He didn't even go into retirement kind of like you look at some of the elite all-time quarterbacks, their final seasons were not some of them. They were at least good. And then their final year or two, they were really bad. Eli, it was basically 2015 was but 2016, okay, they made the playoffs, but then 2017 was bad. 2017 got benched. 2018 was bad. 2019, Daniel Jones ends up taking over. He kind of sits after the first couple games. So it's like 3 bad years to close things out. You look at just some of the quarterbacks in his era. Look, he did play in an era with a lot of very good quarterbacks. And you look at his era. Yes, he had the 2 Super Bowls, but you look at the numbers. Compare him to Breeze, Rivers, even Matt Ryan. They're statistically better in like every single category.
Yep.
So he was great in the playoffs, but whole body of work, not there for me either. Which I'll tell you what, Giants fans all week have just been crying about it.
Well, they got more to cry about today, depending on depending on how this game goes.
It's gonna be a rough week for Giants fans if the rough couple days here. Giants fans can finally flip the page next season. But yeah, any closing thoughts?
I just thank everyone for watching throughout all of the regular season. We get all season ramped up next week. So for me, you, and for a lot of others that I'm pretty sure your teams were in the off season in November.
The Jets were in there October.
Yeah, so we got something for you to relate to from now on, from here on out. So yeah.
It's once they lost to the Patriots, all eyes were on the offseason at that point for the Jets. They played that Halloween game against Houston, and that was the first, nothing matters at this point. And yeah, same thing for the Cowboys as well. Dak goes down, and you kind of knew by November. So we're right there with you. But tomorrow we can finally turn the page. It's a new day. Everybody's 0-0. And it's officially the start of another offseason, which always at the beginning feels like they're going to go long, and then the offseason goes by pretty quick. Free agency is helpful for the month of March. And then
it's going to drag.
Got the draft.
It's going to drag for, let me see. I don't know.
It starts to drag a little bit. Like you get to the end of, I actually think March, April, it's fine. Because you'll get free agency, which is like a whole week of just craziness. And then you'll get some of the trades and stuff. Then you get April's a ton of draft stuff. It starts to drag for me like May, June-ish. That's where it starts to get to you're almost there. Or you're not almost there, but you're getting closer to training camp. But then you have that 40-day period of nothing happening at the end of June.
Yeah.
And it's like, geez, it's like that's like a whole nother off season. Because then you at least you have mini camps and stuff, OTAs. So, you always have guys who don't show up.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's going to be from, free agency opens up March 12th. So it's the next 2 weeks are going to be terrible. And, that first week of March, that's where you see guys kind of agree to contracts, obviously, with other teams, obviously can't sign them until the 12th. So next 2 weeks are going to suck. But after that, free agency is fun when you don't have to rely on Jerry Jones to do anything. So for the teams that do like to sign free agents and make moves, then you're kind of optimistic. You're like, all right, great. But
the next 2 weeks are, I agree. The next 2 weeks are rough because it's kind of like teams, the season, like the dust is settling. Teams kind of just figuring out what their plan is for free agency. Nobody making moves yet because, it's not, you can, I think it's March 12th. So, and you'll start to get moves that March. Now, you do get the combine, 18 days from now? Not that that's huge, but, if you get some of these organizations like the Jets where take stock in the pro days, that's coming up too. So you want to see, I'm sure Jackson Dart will maybe make a couple throws in shorts and skyrocket up the draft boards.
And franchise quarterback after that. That's how it usually goes, right?
Yep. Joe Douglas was there. He was watching Zach, said, "This is our guy. Welcome to the Big Apple." And that now neither of them are even here. Joe Douglas doesn't even have a job. So
football, gotta love it.
Yes. So we'll be back. Thank you. Like you said, echo what you said. Thank you for everybody for tuning in all year. Off season's here. We'll be back next week. And talk to you then.